people bemoaning how boring it is to watch them continue to win.
It's called biased cap. Katie, like, what do you mean? They did not care when OpTic was winning most of the tournaments in AW.
Every other fan of any other team besides FaZe probably thinks it's boring.
Welcome to Reverse Sweeps preview show presented by USAA Insurance, where I, off camera, have had to listen to Ian try and do the worst British accent I've ever heard in my entire life.
You've
Ian,
heard
what do you
worse.
have to say?
You've heard worse.
Yeah,
my accent isn't the best.
What?
But
Mine's
it's not
fantastic. You must have been talking about Tupac X Thug Lord.
Oh no.
Underscore. Do not forget the underscore.
Chatting bullets.
Oh, my bad.
All you lot chatting bullets.
All right, guys. Well, we're not here to talk about British accents. We are here to talk about COD. We are here to talk about what we think is going to happen in week 2. So let's very quickly go over the group standings so far, how we got to where we are prepping up for week 2 of Stage 5. We'll take a look at the tops of groups A and B. Maybe no surprise that you're going to see the likes of FaZe and Dallas up on top. Toronto sitting in 3rd place, but keep in mind, guys, some of these teams did play 2 matches. Some of these teams only played 1. Paris sitting in the bottom, as are Gorillas, Seattle, and London, also in the bottom of the standings, so perhaps no surprise there. Let's talk about Atlanta FaZe. On a scale of 1 to 10, Pacman, how difficult was this week for FaZe?
I mean,
And it was very hard to not drop a map.
that was a blowout. So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know when I'm watching FaZe's matches, they're just so, I don't want to say they're boring. They're not boring. That's not the right term. They're just so easy. Gliding through.
Predictable.
Yeah, predictable, easy, dominant. They're doing what they need to do. And I'm always one to say it's not right to take that away from the top teams because they're just beating down the lower teams. They're like, they still have to, they're putting in the work to be this good to make their matches look this easy. So, I mean, nothing but props to those guys. Another fantastic performance, and it was just another day at the office for them.
I'll tell you what, I haven't seen a team like this in a long time. I said it the other day. Not only do they have the perfect mix of talent and then teamwork / in-game sense, just game sense, but their passion. It's hard when you're so successful to really keep up, to have the hunger to still want to win more. It really is hard. There's so many times, so many examples that we could use where a team wins an event or wins a couple events and then that's it. This FaZe team just keeps winning. I'm pretty sure if they win their next 2 matches next week, they break their own record for longest win streak in the CDL.
Ooh, it was 12, right?
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. So,
because I know
don't fact check.
Toronto.
I thought it was 13, and they're at 12 right now.
13. Okay,
So,
yeah.
or if it's 12, they're tied again. Then
Yeah, because Toronto
had to beat
almost
them.
yeah, had to beat them. Yeah, to be able to. Okay, yeah.
So FaZe is at a point now where they're literally just playing themselves. They're so bored. It's hey guys, let's beat our own record, I guess, because no one else can beat us. Let's just win more again. So I don't know. They're a special team. And I know people throw the word dynasty around a little bit, but I think if there is going to be another Call of Duty dynasty, it will be this FaZe roster.
Well, dynasty then. They do go up against Thieves and OpTic, 2 teams that went 2-0 in the first week in their week 2. So kind of some of the bigger competition in their group. So Ian, when you look at Thieves OpTic, do you think one of them maybe could make an upset here, or do you think it's going to be the same outcome as what we saw week 1?
I want to say yes. I could see one of them beating FaZe. I mean, we gas FaZe up. They are the best team in the game. They lost to Gorillas before this year. Okay, that's one of their 4 losses all year is against. So
that Express was bad.
Yes. So you can lose to any team. You can. If you have an off day, you wake up, maybe Simp is a little under the weather. I don't know. But it's going to be hard for LAT and OpTic, just being straight up. FaZe doesn't have a single weakness. And I feel like they really want to beat their own record. I really do for some reason. So they're going to go extra hard. And they know. Because like I said, where they are still so hungry to just continue winning, they know that if they did slip up and kind of take their foot off the pedal, they could potentially lose to both of these teams go to. You know, LAT and OpTic are both very good teams, so I don't see it happening. Long story short, I don't see it happening.
I think part of what might lead to them still being so hungry is that they did lose champs last year. They were probably the best team last year. Like, I mean, probably they were overall the best team last year, but they lost champs. They lost champs to Dallas, so they come into this year, even though they're the best team again. Like, you gotta, that thought still gotta be there. Like, we slipped up at the end. Like, they passed us up. Dallas was the best team in the game. They got to keep that hunger alive so that they can make sure that these teams will catch up to them. Because even though they're the best team, there's a couple teams right on their heels, right? So, I mean, I think that's really important. Now, when I look at matches like OpTic and LA Thieves, whenever you put two good teams up against the better team in a week, you always in your head like, oh, they could lose one. But individually, in a vacuum, you take the matches, I feel like Atlanta FaZe is a huge favorite against both. OpTic just hasn't played well against them. Like, I think
they're 0-2, 0-6. I think in the last two
and it's like 0-2, 0-6, and it's like really bad 0-6, not a close 0-6. Yeah. And I just feel like Atlanta's just better than LA Thieves, straight up right now. They don't have enough work in yet, which is fair, right? But LA Thieves is a team that could surprise them. We've seen a couple members on the team play them close already in the past, so we'll see. I mean, I feel like FaZe is going to come out of this 2-0 pretty clean, but of course they could fall to either team. Of course they could slip up. I just don't see that happening.
So something that I've noticed a lot, and I try not to take a lot of stock in the social media takes, but something I've seen on Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, and the like, is people bemoaning how boring it is to watch them continue to win. And how, I just wish other teams were winning. So, Pacman, do you think that's just coming from a place of envy because maybe they're a fan of another team? Or do you think it's not a good fan mentality? What do you think when you see people kind of, and maybe transcending to say NFL, say Tom Brady and you know, New England back in the day, whatever. But when a team's winning a lot and you see people complaining like that, what do you think? It's
called biased cap. Katie, like, what do you mean? They did not care when OpTic was winning most of the tournaments in AW. They did not give a damn. They hated it when Rise was winning in World War II. They did not like it when 100 Thieves started winning in that game. The thing is, OpTic has the biggest fan base. You start beating them, they say it's boring. That's not how it is. Like, these guys are putting in the work. Now, if Simp and them, they don't have the best social media presence. They don't. So it's not like they're not getting behind their favorite players. Let's say they're not getting behind the guys that they're used to have seen win in the past. They're not getting behind guys that they even get to really get a look into their lives like they do with some of these other people. They're just, these kids show up to the match, they beat the hell out of you, and then they say GG, and they really don't even say anything crazy, and then they just go on about their business, and that's why, like, it's boring. They're not talking shit, really, not publicly at least. They're not.
They literally the most you'll get is London 3-0.
Yeah. The most you'll get is like a tea bag or something like that. You're just not getting much out of them. Yeah. So if that's what you're saying is boring, but the gameplay's not boring out of them. They're doing what needs to be done.
I mean, I'll play the opposite side of this. I can see it being boring. I'll give you an example. Right? Remember when it was the whole Golden State Cleveland when LeBron was on Cleveland, and it was. You know, as a fan of basketball, I was like, I don't even really care about any of these games this season. Everyone knew it was going to be Warriors versus the Cavs in the finals. So I see that like aspect where it's like, it doesn't really matter who FaZe is playing. They're going to win. And no, the major doesn't really matter. FaZe is going to be in the major or in the final. So like every other fan of any other team besides FaZe probably thinks it's boring. Well, if you're a FaZe fan, you're living it up. Because you're in the dynasty days, potentially, you know. But John is right. Like, as a fan of competition and competitive COD, it is probably the most exciting thing to see. Because if you actually watch how FaZe is playing, how well they're playing, it's like art, you know, compared to all these other teams. I would much rather watch FaZe 10 out of 10 times than watch one of the bottom 4 teams.
All right, because it's more exciting because you don't know what's going to happen. I think that oftentimes people in the moment forget how amazing it is to see
dominance.
Whatever sport, whatever thing it is, to see the team competing at such a high level, because in the moment it doesn't feel like it's going to disappear. but it's going to disappear because that is human nature.
Right.
Complexity was the best team. It wasn't boring. That's where COD started its renaissance, right? They were winning all the time, and it was cool to see teams beat them. OpTic was the team, wasn't boring. Like Tiger Woods was the best golfer in the world. It wasn't boring. These things come, but then they go, and then all of a sudden,
then you miss yeah.
You miss an era. You miss a time where like that's why I miss the jetpack era. I miss this era. I miss the stop hating and enjoy what you're watching in the moment because it will not last forever.
Well said, John. I like that. Well said. And a reminder as well.
Fucking genius.
Genius. You heard it here first from the man himself. A genius. A reminder, Reverse Sweep is presented by USAA Insurance. They make it super easy to insure all of your stuff like your rigs and gear, and they have your back. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Insurance provided by United Services Automobile Association and their affiliates, San Antonio, Texas. Let's talk about Dallas because they're going up against Florida and Minnesota. They played one match in week 1. They'll play 2 in week 2. Florida and Roger, do you think, are you anticipating, Ian, a similar outcome to what we expect from FaZe? Or do you think Florida Rocker, maybe one of them, has a chance to give Dallas some trouble?
No, I think it's going to be about the same. I have Empire winning 2-0. I think that the series can be close. And probably will be. I don't think it'll be as dominant as Dallas was this past week, but Dallas is firing on all cylinders. They look really good right now. They're heating up at the right time, similar to how they did it last year. So I think they're going to be primed and ready to go. They'll be fine. They're a much better team than both Florida and Minnesota. So they'll go 2-0 in my opinion.
I think the last match or last Dallas-Florida match in the last stage was really close. So in Game 5, but I think that Florida team was at a different point. I think that they were more confident. I do feel like Dallas is going to come out 2-0, and if I'm right, and I think that Dallas is going to eventually catch up to FaZe by the end of this, I think that this is going to be a big sign that shows that they're on the right path. Because if they're going to catch up to a team like FaZe, this is a weekend where they need to need to breeze through. Both those teams are good. So in order to breeze through a week like that, you need to be getting to that point where all your teamwork's on point and individually you're on point. And if they do get to that point, I just know that this Dallas team's top end potential is ridiculous and it's scary. Right. So I see Dallas coming out 2-0.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we're waiting for too, is that consistency factor that we've mentioned so many times with Dallas. You have a great run, you take it the distance, you look better, but can you show us that you are now consistently a contender against some of those other top teams? And I think, starting 2-0 over Florida and Rocker, ideally doing it cleanly, will get you,
nice word.
Get you to come out a little bit ahead and give us a little more of an idea of whether they're going to stay in our top 3 or maybe fall down in those power rankings. But let's talk about John. Let's talk about LA Thieves. John coming onto the roster. They have a great start. They start 2-0 in this stage. They are going to go up against Atlanta and Paris. I would assume it's going to be a 1-1 Pacman, but especially for John, how important do you think these series are for him as a player?
Honestly, I don't think they're that important for him individually. He's had a little bit of time off, but John is a seasoned pro.
He's been here.
All these matches are just getting matches under his belt. I don't feel like, so when they inevitably lose to Atlanta, as long as he doesn't get absolutely porked on, which he won't because he's really talented himself, I think it's fine. It's more about the team gelling. I don't think that it's important for John. I think it's important for LA Thieves. John's already, he looks comfortable on the map. He's been playing this whole season. He's good. John's good and everyone knows he's good. It's more about how the team forms around him and how the team gels together. I don't really take too much stock in John versus Paris or John versus these guys. John's been around for too long for me to do that to him. I think that he's already ready. It's just getting him in champs form.
I agree. I think John will continue to play well because even though he hasn't been in this the pro scene, he's been competing in challengers all year and he's been very good. He's won a lot in challengers. I'm pretty sure he's teaming with Slasher again. So he has Cap as his coach. He's in a good spot. This is the best situation that John could have possibly be put in. But he's decorated. He's a champion, like John said. So I'm not expecting them to beat FaZe. I hope they do. I'm expecting them to go 1-1 this week. But just the more reps John gets, the better. Because the only things that matter are Major 5 and champs. You know, and it's not like he's been playing bad, but he doesn't need to be playing absolutely fantastic right now. Give him a little bit of time. Let him get some more reps in, especially against some of the better SMG duos in the league. And he'll be all right.
Well, so we'll see. And I think a good test too, to go up against a team like FaZe, see how he can contend against them. As you guys have said, not a new face in the league. Happy to have him back. But someone who has done it at the highest levels consistently. So we'll see how he plays. Thieves as well, how they play as a unit. Big test for them with FaZe coming up this week. But let's take a look at week 1's Unsung Heroes and what we can expect from them in week 2 of Stage 5 with Got You Covered, presented by USAA Insurance. Level up your gear protection with USAA Insurance. So the one to watch, whether it's a team, whether it's a player, I've kind of been delegating, but whichever one of you would like to start, gentlemen, the one to watch. Who do you have your eye on?
Go ahead, John.
Okay.
Go ahead. Well, I went first. I went first
every time.
I went first
time.
last time.
Nah, that's okay. Well, I mean, we just talked about it. I'm gonna go with LA Thieves in general, because I feel like if they're going to be a contender, oftentimes with their unit, they need to play this match closely. Even if they lose, it's just got to be a really solid match. Like they can't go into this and get blown out. My eye's not really on John. It's more on how the team does as a whole, and only against Atlanta. Against Paris, they could lose, they could win, and I wouldn't even look into it too much. It's just against the teams that matter, and Atlanta's one of those teams that they actually look forward to during the week. You know what I mean? And it's way different. So I'm gonna be looking at LA Thieves this week, and I think this is their most important match until the actual major.
For me, Katie, I'm gonna go with team as well, and it has to be NYSL for me, because not only did they have a really bad week, 0-2, didn't look good at all. None of the players besides Hydra really, for me, were doing anything on the map. They looked all out of sync. But this is a very, 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 very important week for them, just moving forward, not only in terms of confidence, but they need to start to win every series. Because yes, they're already guaranteed champs, but they're in a very close battle between Dallas, Toronto, and themselves on getting that top 2 spot. So they have that bye at champs, which is what they want. You know, they want the easiest road, the road that has the shortest amount of obstacles in it to become champion this year. So I think they're going to turn it around starting next week, and they're my unsung heroes. They're my team to watch.
I'm going to go with a team as well. And it's a team up in that dynamic, Ian, with what you just mentioned, that kind of like 2, 3, 4 slots and how they all work out. I want to go with Toronto, and maybe kind of specifically Cammy and Bance as well, because they do have 2 matches. They're not against anyone super substantial. It's Seattle on Saturday, and I think they play Gorillas on Thursday. So I would expect them to win both of those. But I think Toronto has continued to look incredible. I just feel like lately they've been missing a little bit of that extra magic that made them so excited to watch. They're incredible. It just feels like that little extra bit of magic is missing. And you saw how upset Cammy was at the major when they lost. Bance has kind of had some up and down moments. So I'd really just like to see them come out in week 2 and make a huge splash and just not just get comfortable wins, but kind of get those dominating wins over these teams to kind of maybe get a little bit of that mojo back. So probably, I think, and as well, we know how important, as you mentioned, Ian, those points can be for your placement and how you go into champs. But let's talk about bold predictions for this week. I had one good bold prediction ever, and then they all sucked. Ian seems to have a sixth sense for these. John is quite good at it too. So gentlemen, Ian, I'll start with you. Do you have any bold predictions for the upcoming week 2 of Stage 5?
The upcoming week, I can craft up something crazy.
It's going to be wild. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to involve math that I can't do, and it's going to come true. I know that now.
Okay.
I resigned myself to my fate, John.
I got a good bold prediction for you.
Mm-hmm.
I have LAT going 2-0, beating FaZe and Paris. Okay, but that's not it. Because FaZe lose. Well, they play LAT first, right? Yeah, they do. I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I have FaZe losing versus OpTic, not breaking their own record that they already have. Going 0-2 on the week, but then bouncing back and being okay. I can't go too crazy with FaZe. And honestly, this is not my best bold prediction, Katie. But I looked at the schedule.
Watching John, he's been sinking farther and farther back into that.
I don't even remember the last time they had an 0-2 week. Or like,
okay, they're not gonna go 0-2, but it's a bold. Like I can't. What else am I gonna? I can't. All these other matches.
No, you're right. I mean, it's bold. It could happen.
It could
happen. So you might be right.
And I'm giving the OpTic fans respect. They're like, oh, Enable predicted us to win. Last time I did Seattle Surge bold prediction, and I was getting cooked on Twitter for a week and a half. And then Seattle won. I was like, idiots.
I'm gonna go with the London Royal Ravens being the only bottom 4 team to get a win, and they're gonna do it against NYSL, and they're gonna beat NYSL 3-1.
Oh, poor subliners.
That's gonna be because it's gonna be the tough road for NYSL, and they're gonna end up starting in losers in Major 5. This is just how I feel. I don't feel like NYSL is really strong right now, and I think of the bottom 4, London showed me the most. So maybe they'll put it together for one day.
Sheesh.
Okay, I like that. Maybe not if you're a New York fan, you might not like that, but I do. Because London, every once in a while, I think they could do something wild. Yeah.
They got to get one eventually. That's my thought process.
Got to get one at some point. And might as well do it against a technically challenged New York Subliners because they just can't catch a break.
NY might just come out and just 3-0 them, beat them bad.
Who knows?
Their mojo back.
I think I'm going to go with Minnesota upsets Dallas for the marquee match on Sunday. They are the final match of the week. I really like the Minnesota-Dallas matchups this whole year.
They've been good.
Because it's kind of been back and forth. Granted, there's so many differences between the beginning of the year and now. But Minnesota's another one of those teams, I think with a higher likelihood perhaps than a London to kind of make something wild happen. We've seen them beat top teams. So I don't know. I think maybe Minnesota gets a surprise upset over Dallas. That's my bold prediction.
I like it, kid. Hey, yours might be
they play them well.
I don't want to be the one to say it. Mine's definitely going to be the worst one this week.
Yours is probably the most likely to happen, Katie. Let's be honest. But
I need something. I've been so bad at these predictions.
This might be your week, Katie.
I need
Prestigi's heart. Prestigi's heart.
Prestigi's heart, please.
Yeah,
I need it.
His passion.
He cares.
He cares.
At least he gets a paycheck and looks like he gives a shit about it, That's all I'm trying to say. But Minnesota, I think they'll be able to get an upset. Upset over Dallas. So before we close out the show, I do have one quick question for you guys. Maybe not a kind question, but a question nonetheless. Do you think there's any purpose in the games that the bottom 4 teams play at this point?
Yes. So,
for those teams, not for other teams.
If those organizations and the managements were smart, yes. Right now, this is actually a great question, Katie. This is why every team should have a challengers team, an academy team, and we should have a better ranking system, to have a better ecosystem to build up the minor leagues, the challenger series. Because right now, similar to how they do it in professional sports, if hey, it was a good season, we tried, we're not making playoffs, you bring in young players to get more minutes to seed their potential. Like LAG should have just brought their whole academy team in. Okay, because they're not going to champs. Hate to break it to them, they don't have a shot in hell to win Major 5 either. So you might as well see mental with Cheen, what is it, Neuropoison,
Exceed, or Mox, or whatever it was.
Because the thing is is when they play these top teams, FaZe, Dallas, Toronto, those teams are still going hard, especially because though like they're all in the mix. They want to get the highest seed possible. So that is what all of the teams in the bottom four should have been doing. LAG can do it right now, but they're not. But they just don't think, I guess. I don't know.
For the bottom four teams, it's important for their futures individually, because I do feel like there's some, like we talked about it, some good individual players in the mix. Yeah, the individual matches themselves might not matter, but your performance and your attitude and your drive still does matter. If your teams are still going to leave you into play, like LAG is, you got to come out and do what you can do. Thing is, for a team like, let's say LAG specifically, those players have been around for so long that they're not going to show us anything. Because we've seen
what you're
going
to get.
Yeah, we know what you're going to get. And it's not that they're bad. Like, App's one of the best players of all time. But we just know what you're giving us right now. And it just is what it is. For teams like Paris, I don't know. I feel like they phoned it in. London has Afro, who's like, coming into his own, and a couple guys who are like right on the edge on the chopping block. But they've made so many changes. Yeah, Paul X.
To see more out of him.
I feel like Paul X is a guy that has done enough to earn himself maybe a bottom spot. But the problem is when you're on a team like this, like he was clearly one of the better challenger players, but in the pro scene, he hasn't been able to string together many wins. And it's just a tough spot to be in because it's easy for some of the older pros to take that spot. Because like even when I was even a lot of the older pros, when they were struggling, they still did better than London. So these matches are important to show that you are still individually the right choice.
Yeah, so I think that's important. Kind of start, whether you're an organization, as Ian said, if you're being smart, testing out the best options you have available for next year, and players, kind of showing what you can do regardless of the fact that your team might be struggling. We'll see what they can do, or if they do end up, these bottom four, just phoning it in. But that'll all happen, guys. Week 2 is coming up in just a few days, but that'll be it for us. The Reverse Sweep preview show. I cannot wait to see what we look forward to in week 3. But for right now, guys, that'll be it. We will see you when the week concludes.